Today, Tim Cross is going to share with you the advantages of using XML and PDF file formats to deliver your content. Tim, a product marketing manager, has been at Allen Press since 2003, working in a number of areas including marketing, operations, product development, content processing, and editorial services. His primary focus is on the composition and editorial workflows, offset and digital printing, and FSC chain of custody. I'm going to turn the presentation over to Tim now. Don't forget to use the chat box on the lower right of your screen to send in your questions. Select Host in the Send To drop-down box.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join us for the webinar today. Today's topic deals with some fairly specific concepts and some practical observations related to the delivery of content in the changing world of publishing. But before we hone in on some of these details, I'd like to provide some general context or background for what we're talking about. We've certainly all heard the buzzwords of disruption and transformation in the last couple of years. But aside from sounding really scary or exciting, I guess, depending on your point of view, what does this mean in real terms? What does it mean on the ground in the editorial or society office? On a day-to-day basis, where is scholarly publishing headed? What does the road in front of us look like? Is it going to bring threats and danger, or is it more going to be a wide-open horizon of opportunity? Well, I guess the answer, like most things in life, is probably a little of both. So what has changed and why has it changed? Well, it's obvious that economic forces, environmental concerns, rapid accelerations in technology, changing consumer culture, even shifting reader habits have all had an impact and are driving change. But for those of us in scholarly publishing, the big thing is that there's been a revolution in how content is created and managed. The whole concept of what content is has been transformed. From the invention of the printing press back in the 15th century into well into the digital age, content and the container for the content have mostly been seen as basically synonymous. So whether we were talking about a book or a journal, a newspaper, or a magazine, the container and the content were basically seen as the same thing. With the advent of digital technology, the entire game changed. Content is no longer the same thing as the container. Digital content is an autonomous entity, data, essentially, which can be structured and identified and subsequently repurposed, reused, reformatted, republished, really in a multitude of ways. So content and container have been separated. And this fundamental change and the inherent conflict it causes are best summed up by the prophetic and now iconic words of Stuart Brand back at the Hackers Conference in 1984 when he said, "Information wants to be free." This is an oft-quoted statement from Stuart Brand, but in the same talk in 1984, he said, "Information also wants to be expensive." According to Brand, information wants to be free because it has become so cheap to distribute, copy, and recombine. It wants to be expensive because it can be immeasurably valuable to the recipient. That tension will not go away. Each round of new devices makes the tension worse, not better. In addition to what Brand says, another reason information is expensive is the amount of work that goes into gathering it into a usable format. The research, the peer review, the editing, and the composition steps, as well as the conversion and transformation steps. So out of these realities has risen a world of multi-channel possibilities. Content isn't just delivered in print anymore. We can host it on a website. We can read it as a digital edition on our laptop. We can package an app for a smartphone. You can send it to any number of reading devices. It might even be shared on YouTube or offered as a podcast. This leads to a world of possibilities. There are potential new revenue sources, new ways of packaging content, and new ways to reach readers. There are also new ways to enhance content that weren't available in the past, things like embedding multimedia and advanced navigation features. This also leads to the inevitable question, What can publishers, scientific societies, and editorial offices do to survive and thrive in this changing environment? What we need is a multi-tool. We need one tool that does it all. And that's where XML and PDF come in. XML and PDF are the multi-tool that unlocks the potential of your content. Tagging your content in XML or converting it to PDF gives you the flexibility and portability you need to distribute and share it in a variety of ways with a variety of end users. So let's look at some definitions. PDF, everybody's familiar with PDF, but it stands for Portable Document Format. It's an open standard platform independent file format created by Adobe for document exchange. The important word here is portable. A PDF is viewable on any platform because it contains all the text, fonts, images, and vector graphics needed to render it. And it's a true visual representation of how a document was intended to display. Vector graphics, if you're not familiar with that term, we're just talking about text and images that are created using geometric formulas. They scale cleanly to any size. They're not bitmap images, so this eliminates resolution problems. XML, another familiar term to a lot of people in scholarly publishing, stands for Extensible Markup Language. And a markup language, it's a markup language for documents containing structured information. So what I mean by structured information is anything that contains both the content and then some indication of what role that content plays. So in this short example here, we have a book, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. The content is the words, the actual Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, and then the role of that is title. Tagging goes along with XML, of course. So by tagging, we mean inserting role identification and other markers into the text of a document to label its elements. So here we have a simple XML example. We've got a start tag that says citation, and we have an end tag that says citation. Everything within that is the citation. So it's nested inside of that. And nested further inside that, we have a start tag for title and an end tag for title, and it's on the road. So we've got a citation for Jack Kerouac on the road. This level of tagging can go from the document level all the way down to a single character. DTD, another familiar term, but it stands for Document Type Definition. And formally, we're talking about a collection of rules defining the proper content and document structure of a particular flavor of XML. It lists the elements, attributes, and entities in a document. It defines the relationships between those different elements and attributes. Validation is just the checking of that XML. So we're checking the tagging structure for well-formed XML and valid XML. By well-formed XML, we're talking about anything structural. So if we have a start tag, we have to have an end tag. It's basically that simple. It's just looking for, was the XML structured correctly? Valid XML, on the other hand, means that it conforms to the intended DTD. So speaking of DTD, let's talk a little bit about NLM. That's the National Library of Medicine, the world's largest biomedical library. PMC is PubMed Central, which provides free access to the full text of articles. NLM DTD was the DTD originally designed for content posted on PubMed Central. It's now the de facto standard full-text DTD for scholarly publishing. It's popular with aggregators. It's also the house DTD of Adapon Systems and Allen Press. It's a recommended DTD for full-text content in Magenta and Highwire Press as well. It's also known, sometimes you'll hear it referred to as PMC DTD. So now that we've covered some basic definitions, I'd like to illustrate XML with an example. So here's an excerpt from a sample research article. We'll focus on the Smith reference, and then here's what the tagging looks like for the Smith reference. So we have a start tag that says ref list, and we have an end tag that says ref list. And so that's your start and end tag. Anything that is nested within that is your reference list. So granted, we have a very short reference list here. We only have one citation in it, but I'm sure you get the picture. So we've got a reference list, Then we have a title. So the title of this reference list is literature cited. Then we have a reference ID. You can see the journal that this came from. The lead author's name is Smith. And we have an end tag for that reference ID. Then we move further inside. We've got a citation, start tag, end tag. Everything inside of that is the citation. We have a person group, start tag and end tag. And person group refers to, in NLMDTD, is referring to the author group. So everything within this is our authors. And we have names, so everything within this is an author name. And we have his surname, which is Smith, his given names, which in this case is first initial for this style, and so forth. So we have the year, we've got the article title, and an analysis of useful information available to authors to cite as useful information so they can get published is our article title. And then we have our source, which is the journal, the research annals of the National Academy of Stuff. And then we have volume, first page, last page, and so forth. So you can see we have an entire hierarchy of tags nested within tags. Now that we've worked through some basic definitions of PDF and XML and looked at an XML sample, I'd like to present some ways of looking at these file formats that are useful, you might find useful in understanding their value. So XML. First of all, it's primarily machine readable. So sure, it can obviously be read by humans who are trained, but it's not intuitively easy to read XML. On the other hand, it's very easy for a computer to read and process. You might think of it as a card catalog of the article content. We can use the XML to search the article. Another way to look at XML is that it functions as a database. So every piece of text, image, punctuation, and link is labeled and searchable, and its role is identified. Big thing is it's a flat file, so it carries no instruction on how the content should display. And the advantage of a flat file is that it's in ASCII format. So ASCII format is the old typewriter format. Flat file is not compiled. It's simple. It can be moved around on various platforms without too much danger of file corruption. And it's also the master file. So it's the master file from which everything else is derived. PDF, unlike XML, which is primarily machine readable, PDF is primarily human readable. It gives us that perfect visual representation of the article content, complete with fonts, formatting, and layout. And in this way, it functions sort of as a bridge between the print world and the digital world. The PDF is, of course, a digital file, but it can display exactly what goes to press. It's also self-contained, so you don't need an XML reader or a way to render the coding as you do with XML. And like print, the content and the container are combined, which is another sort of bridge to the print world. The content and the display are one and the same. And for all the reasons just mentioned, PDF is a great commerce model.